Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. It's been just under 8 months since Mickey Mouse used his size 22 yellow cartoon shoes to kick Bob Chapek in the ass in those big old white mitts that toss him to the curb before gently reinstalling Bob Iger as the CEO of Disney. At the time, there was much celebrating, rejoicing, and copious changes, and a distinct lack of bad press from the top of the Magic Kingdom food chain. Well, that's changed a bit in the last few weeks, as the good Bob has managed to trip over his Donald Duck a couple of times now and is scrambling to undo some of his own negative reactions. And we're going to dive into all of it and more in this episode 136. Why'd you have to fuck with the magic, Bob? I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who was permanently banned from Disneyland Paris due to an incident which will remain sealed until 2045 to protect national security. He has been my partner in idiocy for over 2 decades and loves himself a good Dole Whip. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend, and yes, that will remain sealed for all perpetuity or until some, Kennedy, fifth generation Kennedy, demands it.
I did not assault that animatronic in the Hall of Presidents.
Thanks, Bill. Jeez Louise. That was dead on, man. Well done.
That was more Bill Clinton now. Back in the day, it would have a little more energy, but yeah. I'm drinking a Wild Turkey 101 out of a empty Starbucks cup right now. So
Uncle Todd's slumming it. Uncle Todd is slumming it, baby.
Oh, no, I'm living the high life, baby.
Oh, boy.
Oh, it's good times. Good times here at Patrick.
Oh,
Patrick.
Oh, gosh, I get to see this on video now. Wow.
Patrick, put the fire extinguisher down.
Oh, good Lord.
Put it down. It's not charged anyways. Did you light anything on fire?
Didn't he use it to propel himself in the rolling chair or something like that?
He did. He got your idea about his scooter, except he couldn't afford the motorized one. So he had one of those little
Oh, good God.
Put it down. Go back to your closet. HQ, let me tell you. It's not
it's been a number of episodes since we've had a Patrick discussion. Very nice.
Yeah, nice. It was bliss, wasn't it?
It was.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well, sir. That is good to hear. We had a very nice discussion about blue cheese crusted steaks before the show started. So it's good to know that you're living your bougie lifestyle while I'm here drinking cheap bourbon out of an empty Starbucks cup.
This weekend is my birthday, and I'm going to celebrate appropriately. So
of course you will. Of course you will.
I will.
More bread, more steak for my people.
No bread. Just deviled eggs. Deviled eggs.
I just imagine you waking up on your birthday going, "White pass." Just reliving the whole first 20 minutes of Coming to America. Do you have sex with your bathers? I do.
Oh my!
What are we? 4.5 minutes in here, we're already off the rails. Good, good.
Yes. Oh,
all
yes.
right. Well,
absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, and to answer the unasked questions, I'm doing fine as well.
Oh, I figured I asked that already. Apparently, I didn't. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. As usual, my schedule is still a dumpster fire.
Still a dumpster fire.
Thus the bourbon out of the empty venti iced coffee cup. But nice. Life's good. Life's
nice.
Good. It's great.
I know this might be considered a week in geek item, but given your propensity and your skill at bringing to life Dusty Rhodes. This Monday on Raw, I caught a Cody Rhodes promo where he invoked 2 words.
Hard
2
time.
words at Uncle Todd.
Uncle Ton? Like, am I a tauntaun now? Like, what
Yeah,
the?
you are a tauntaun.
Tim's dreaming of the day he can cut me open and use me for warmth. Although he is right, I do smell worse on the inside than the outside. My wife will attest to that.
But yes,
especially after a night of Five Guys, she's like, "Oh dear God, what is that smell? It's like a squirrel crawled up inside of you, died."
You know what that is? That's hard times, baby.
That's hard times right there. That's hard times.
But he did. He invoked the hard times phrase, and wasn't quite the same. I got to admit.
Well, the thing is, you got to be Dusty Rhodes, and the thing is, with Cody Rhodes, I know he's been through some hard times, but it's not the same hard times because Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes has been to the mountaintop. He's been to the valley. He's dined with kings and queens. He has slept in alleyway. He has dined on pork and beans. It's hard times for the American Dream. Hard time for the plumber's son from Austin, Texas. Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
that was a sight to behold, sir.
Let me tell you, if you're not following No Context Dusty on Instagram, you need to get that joy into your life, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Oh my goodness, is that a great account?
I absolutely love some of the scenario setups. It's like
it's great.
Coming home from a bar and it's like, oh, it's hard times or whatever it was. But oh my gosh, just such great stuff. Such great stuff with that. and Ric Flair as well. I think they do another one with Ric Flair, which is hysterical.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much of those guys. But the thing is, like, you got to admire, like, the fact. I go back to this, man. Dusty Rhodes. I don't look like the average athlete. No, you don't, Dusty. No, like the only athlete I can think of that comes close. The only 2 I can think of that comes close to you. 3. John Kruk, CC Sabathia, and who was the other guy? He ended up pitching for the Yankees. I think he pitched for the Indians at one point.
Thinking about El Guapo?
No, well, El Guapo's one, but not quite as well known. There was another pitcher who was just one of those guys. You're like, wasn't it Carlos Colon?
Yeah, I think it might have been Cologne. Yeah,
who always looked like if you cut him, he would bleed like cheesecake. You know, like these people who you're like, that is not a professional athlete.
Yeah,
that was Dusty Rhodes, and that was the thing that was brilliant. Like, here's a dude who's he is not an athlete looking sort of dude, and he talks in a way that you're like, that's not what I was expecting. Never mind the lisp, just the funkiness of how he spoke and everything. That was just like, it made you do a double take. It was great.
The charisma this man had, which will lead into a Week in Geek item we will talk about another man who is oozing with the charisma right now.
Yeah,
let me talk to you. So.
All right. Well, speaking of, since that was such a nice segue, let's get into this little thing called the Week in Geek. The Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
What do you got for us this episode, sir?
Oh, we have a full lineup, my friend. Full plate.
We do. We have got a full feast for our listeners.
We do. We got Star Trek, we got BSG, we got Star Wars, The Old Republic, we got a little bit of Marvel, we got some wrestling in there, and Uncle Todd has promised us a little cheeky tweet of the week, so looking forward to that.
Lord Almighty, I need a cigarette already. I feel like I
well, you have to settle for the wild turkey, I suppose.
I've peaked.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
First item comes by way of denofgeek.com. This was an article from a couple weeks ago. Star Trek Picard movie gets a disappointing update. Apparently, didn't realize this. There was rumors of a movie that they wanted to do with the Star Trek, Picard franchise, and coming hot off the presses of a phenomenal season 3 that we have gone through and dissected right here on the Free Range Idiocy program.
Go back and check out that episode, people.
Yeah, I think it was only a few episodes ago. I think it was before the big hiatus we went on. We had our Picard, and by big hiatus we mean about 3 weeks. So
something like that.
Something like that.
So what was the big start with this? Like they suddenly realized that Patrick Stewart is like 115 years old and thought, oh wait.
I basically this article, Patrick Stewart talks about, I think we could do a Picard-based movie, now not necessarily at all about Picard, but about all of us, and to take many of those wonderful elements, particularly from season 3 of Picard, and take out of that what I think could be an extraordinary movie. Goes on to say, fans would agree, but let's see. Trying to think. It's nice to have a Picard movie. Requires Paramount to make Trek fans happy, and that doesn't seem to be their business model at the moment. So let me go back.
Say what?
Hold on. No, I'm just reading parts out of the article here. Lead to more. Holding off a full 2
I love
seasons.
it when you live scan the article. Like, it makes me feel so much better about my lack of show prep. I just wanted to let you know that. And it's totally on brand for us.
Terry Matalas has been open on social media about calling for a continuation called Star Trek Legacy, right, which would follow, Captain 7 of 9 and the Enterprise G.
Totally on board for that.
But Patrick Stewart has even bigger plans, calling for a 5th Next Generation movie based on Picard. After initial reluctance to reteam with his former cast, Stewart has embraced the idea. But I think I'm trying to find where someone says they're not going to do it, though. Producers told me... Yeah, I'm not really seeing who's saying no, but it just sounds like Paramount just doesn't want to do it. I can't say I disagree. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't disagree with the idea. And we talked about this in our episode when we went through season 3 and the finale, which is, that was just lightning in a bottle. And this is what drives me nuts about the freaking entertainment industry is like they strike gold with something that resonates, and of course this was nostalgia. This was not a brand new or amazing creative thing they did for season 3 of Picard, but it gave TNG fans something like a revisit with the old crew, with the old ship, once again saving the universe, or as William Shatner would say in Star Trek 6, once again we've saved humanity as we know it. And
didn't they actually make in there somewhere about how many times they've saved the galaxy or something like that? Wasn't there a line in there?
There was, I think, in the early part of season 3, the sarcastic captain of what became the Enterprise G, was talking about like all the various ways that they've saved the galaxy. But,
I'm so sorry that guy didn't make it, but yet at the same time, it made sense story wise. Like I really thought that guy was going to make it out of there, and then I'm like, oh crap, he's a glorified red shirt. Everyone's fair game.
Yeah,
they did that really well.
But yeah, I just don't see, and I don't see the value in doing it. I think this was a one and done sort of thing. It worked so well because they hit notes that they pulled on loose threads from the original TNG series, bringing back Laren, bringing in very different characters. Like I know she was on just for a moment, but I think the Admiral, when they were trying to do the big fleet all synchronized thing, she was a character from the series as well, and as well as other characters we saw. They just hit on the right kind of beats and notes that resonated with fans, and it wasn't cheap nostalgia. It was done with some meaning to it. So I just don't see the point in doing a movie, because I don't think a movie's going to resonate the same way. They're not going to, you're not going to go back to that well of those loose story threads that you could close out from the original series, because you've done it already. The Borg are gone now. The crew's back together. He's reunited with his son. Let it be. Like, there's no story left to tell really at this point. Just let it be, or tell a story of his passing or something like that. But even still, I don't need to see that. Season 3 was a wonderful goodbye to that group.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, like, I will disagree with you slightly. It was cheap nostalgia. But here's the thing. We have become, I think as fans, a little too sophisticated. We've become a little too full of ourselves, a little bit like Boston sports fans became a little full of themselves after, the Patriots won, the Red Sox won, and then all of a sudden like, oh, nothing will settle but for our championship. Like, it just calms down. Like, there's nothing wrong with cheap nostalgia. You know what's good on a summer afternoon? A hot dog. You know what hot dog is good? Any hot dog, as long as you're in the right place. If you're at a ballpark and it's a cheap whatever hot dog, it can be the best hot dog ever if it's a great afternoon watching a good game and you got a cold beer with it. I think back to like going to hockey games with my dad and like I remember specifically getting a hot dog at like every single game, and it came in like the little tinfoil sleeve, and it was probably the dirt cheapest hot dog and hot dog bun that money could buy because they're trying to scrape every cent they can out of a minor league hockey game concession stand.
Yeah.
I still have memories of that. Cheap nostalgia, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with having a cheap thrill or whatever out of like the Enterprise D being there and seeing it with the lights on it for the first time. Nothing wrong with that. Just get over yourself. It's okay. But it can't be the whole thing. There has to be depth around it, and that's what made Picard season 3 so good. Is they managed it. The thing that they missed so badly in season 2, they managed to do in season 3. It's the reason why I'm glad they're not doing a Picard movie, because one, I feel bad saying this. I like Patrick Stewart. I think he's a great actor. I think he's earned the right to do whatever he wants to do. I just really hope he doesn't do any more Jean-Luc Picard. I think this is a great exit. I think there's a point where you have to acknowledge that you cannot keep up with a fast-paced story. And even amongst other middle-aged actors, you can't hide the fact that Stewart is not late middle-aged. He's old. He just is. I want to see Patrick Stewart do a bunch of dramatic movies that are like slow-moving, methodical character studies. I think it would be fracking amazing. I don't want to see Patrick Stewart do Picard. I want to see Star Trek Legacy. I want to see Captain 7 of 9 with what's his face, Jack Crusher, and the rest of the crew weaving in there. And you know what? If you want to throw me some Picard cameos in there, A-okay. Please do not give me him as a main character. We managed to right this ship and send it off into the sunset well.
Yeah.
Please, dear God, no more.
And given his age too, I mean, it's not a character like, quite honestly, like season 1 and 2 were, I think, reflections of this point I'm about to make, which is, he's not a character that I think people really want to see a lot of new ground broken with. Like they tried doing that in those first 2 seasons, and some of it, I think season 1 was a bit stronger than 2. But season 2, with at least with the interaction with him and Q, started to touch on the thing that I think a lot of fans wanted to see, which was the nostalgia, which was to bring the characters back together in meaningful ways, to tie up stories that were left basically open. And so so I think that he's not, to your point, I'd rather see this new crew of the Enterprise G and try to do something with them that's never been, and it's a challenging thing to do something that's never been done with the franchise before. They've done a lot of different things. They've explored a lot of ground. They've covered a lot of different areas, even went to a place in this season 3 that, in some ways cribbed, the entire, pilot of BSG, which, having all the ships networked together and having this massive takeover and downfall of humanity. So I think let's focus on the future. I think they did a nice thing bringing him back and giving, him and the old crew a nice send off, especially on this season 3. And let's be done with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you got your redo for Nemesis.
Yep.
Move on.
Yep.
I would gladly watch the Enterprise G adventures with, Captain 7 of 9, Jack Crusher, and then the occasional cameos with Geordi and Worf and all the rest. I'm down for that. I think they got the tone right, and if they continued off of that, they'd be fine.
And I did find in the article, of course, it was the one paragraph I didn't scan through very carefully, but the denial of such a thing. Stewart basically admits he's been shopping it around, the idea around to the studio. The studio does not seem to be very eager, and I think we've we've dove in enough on that topic. So, adieu, mon capitaine.
Yeah, Stuart, Sir Patrick, pardon me. Love you, man. Just it's time.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time. All right. Our next, I have these out of order. I think our next one is, yes. Next one is a little bit of geekery from the man they call Tim. This comes by way of a site called swotorista.com. It's basically SWTOR. SWTOR is the acronym for Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's a video game that I have talked about, and this site, amongst others, back at the end of June, putting out some news that Star Wars: The Old Republic is moving from the game studio BioWare, who has been doing development with it over the last, I think, 10 to 12 years. This game has been around for a long time. They're handing it over to a studio called Broadsword. A lot of the core team apparently is moving over with them. Back in June, there was much consternation over this. A lot of the community that's still playing that game, myself included, was wondering if this was the beginning of the end, if they were going to start shutting her down, giving us the old you don't have to go home but you can't stay here routine.
Hey, you got it.
I got it.
Someone hasn't been out for last call for a long time.
I'm your Huckleberry. But nonetheless, game development will continue on the game. It sounds like they are going to bring some more updates. They have their 7.4 update called Old Wounds. It's a new story that players can play through. I think they're going to continue to move forward with those types of updates, as well as there was a bit about being made about moving the game to the cloud, which apparently it's not, which is surprising to me because I thought they were in the cloud.
I thought everything was in the cloud.
Some of these games, especially if you started it before the cloud was a thing. It's a bit of a difficult migration when you have to move stuff that's working in a particular way over to that. So
I imagine
it is. Yeah.
Well, just look at what's been going on with Twitter. Like all the stuff there. It's like I think I saw that meme that was like every tech company is like one employee who does that one thing every month that nobody else knows to do or knows how to do. And that person gets fired, and the entire company is going to go down the crapper. Yeah, yep, sounds about right.
Yeah. But BioWare did an amazing job with the game. Some of the comments too I've read is that maybe under a new studio there'll be a hunger to really put out. I think the last couple updates were met with kind of a tepid response from the fans who are still playing. And so maybe in a different studio, they'll go back to, maybe creating some deeper stories. I myself, one of the characters I have in the game, I actually, they have a couple extra modules. Once you go through like the story mode for the character, like I have a smuggler character. Once you finish that, you can actually progress into another set of stories, and it's actually really well done. It's like very cinematic. It's a little different in that it's not as open world because your character is really kind of directed through the story as opposed to you kind of picking where you want to go and that sort of thing. But overall, it's been an absolute pleasure to play, and it's just kind of the natural. They for a while, from I think 2010 on, they would drop every couple of years a new update where you would have this level of story that was being delivered to you as the fan, got to play a little bit more content, just made it interesting. And so I'm excited to see what Broadsword does. And if you haven't played Star Wars: The Old Republic, definitely check it out. It is a lot of fun. A lot of open stuff that you can do there. So
what are you looking off camera at? Do you have like a fruit bat that's coming for you?
No, I don't.
Okay. Once again, the man they call Tim, broadcasting from the Blair Witch Suite, with one naked 20-watt bulb.
That's right.
In the corner,
that's right.
And only the screens illuminating him.
Absolutely.
There we go. And now he's shut off. He's brought the brightness down.
Well, it's because I'm on a dark screen. So
the funny thing I think is interesting is how long this game has been around, and the fact that how many Star Wars games have come and gone between this? Because I know you were very into Squadrons. You were very hot and heavy, as well as Jimmy Dice was very friend of the show, Jimmy Dice from Scruffy Podcasters, was very into Squadrons, and I have heard nary a word about Squadrons, but yet this has stood the test of time over like 10, 12 years. That's like, so I mean, just for instance, let me just get to a menu here. So I mean, for instance, like my Mac that I'm recording on right now is a 2014 late 2014 iMac, which I mean is an insane life for a computer.
Yep. But
similar for a game, how a game can go this long and still be viable and still be playable and have this fan base. Like, is it real? I mean, it must be that good, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it is. I mean, I really enjoy it, and I think what makes it fun is it's just it has kind of an open world concept. It's not open. I'm forgetting the Star Wars game we talked about a couple episodes ago, but
I was trying to recall that as well.
That one, I think it was called Star Wars. I'll never mind. I think the difference there is the interactability, not just on planet, but even up in space too. Like if you choose to go and engage ships, like you can basically create, kind of a thread, just by doing something that's just completely on a whim on your own. This one is open world too, but it is, it does have limits. It isn't like truly open, but it's much more open than a more, kind of direct story, that's being told. Whereas Squadrons is more of it's
almost like
story
flight
mode
simulator sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a flight simulator, but you have a story mode you go through. But once you finish that story mode, then really all you have is the kind of online community gameplay where you either go into a cooperative battle with others, and I think what happened there is, as with all games, you just have people who figure out the little quirks with the game and just dominate, and it just becomes not fun to play anymore. So I really enjoyed it. I mean, I also needed to get, I think, a better controller to play it too. I got a little bit better at it once I started using an Xbox controller with it, because you can use the joysticks for a little more, kind of natural like flight control. But when I got to the Old Republic, it was just, I was just immersed in it. And part of, the attraction of it too is they do an amazing job with the visuals of these worlds. Like when I'm playing, especially this new module I'm playing, which to be clear is not new. This was a module, I think, like the story mode and the things that I've gotten through were kind of what came with the game. This, I think, was a module that was published, I think, in 2012 or 2014, and then there's one more after it that I think was probably 2016 or 2017. So wow. But the amount of detail they put into all of these settings is just incredible. I mean, it's just like, for me as a fan, it's a great way to just kind of feel like you're forging some new story in this universe, and it just really just immerses you in it, and it's a lot of fun. At the end of the day, it's a run around and shoot 'em up sort of game. I mean, like you're going around slashing or shooting depending on what your character is, but they have enough characters and decisions you can make with these characters to do certain things and follow certain paths and stuff like that. So it's fun that way. It gives you a sense of independence and autonomy, even though it is somewhat controlled. So
and just so you know, Star Wars Outlaws was
yes. I was going to say
Smugglers,
but I knew that was wrong. So
it looks fracking amazing. Unfortunately, I'm going to guess I also will be disqualified because I'm using a Mac. From doing
and the
anything.
Thing is, the thing with Macs too is, I think they do have Macs that you can do gaming on, but but they're like the really expensive ones, whereas you can probably find a reasonable gaming PC that is powered enough to do like games like this.
Well, some of them don't even like
$1,000 or $1,500.
Well, a Mac doesn't even qualify. Like it's just the operating system. So you almost have to have you have to, again, if Brindamore was here, he could tell me exactly how to do this, because it'd be like, oh, well, you just, bisect your hard drive, and then this over here, you run it as a PC, and, this, I'm like, I lost you at, you have to, I'm not that savvy. I just know that I buy Macs, and I buy them with enough specs that I don't have to update them for like 8 to 10 years.
When I got into EVE Online, all I had was my my MacBook laptop, and it was a MacBook Air, and it wasn't tricked out. and
it registered about 150 degrees when you started. Like, it's burned my thighs.
When I started the game, right away, the fans were starting. I'm like, man, am I going to melt this thing down? I mean, it was
the
just
fans
like,
that you never hear on a Mac unless you're all of a sudden you're pushing it, and then you hear the fans like, oh boy.
Yeah. Yep. So, unfortunately, Mac's not the way to go. So anyway, some interesting things afoot for the Star Wars Old Republic game. I'm excited to see what they do next. All right. Moving on from Star Wars to BSG. I came across this article last week. It was kind of an interesting little tidbit.
I know. I saw this. I was very excited. I specifically did not read this item because I wanted to be kind of like, sort of moment here.
And so really the thrust of the article had to do with Ronald D. Moore's original intention to have the show focus on various ships within the colonial fleet and have these ships that serve different purposes. So you have like hospital ships, prison ships, schools, like I think I'm forgetting the large ship in season 1 where it was almost like they were on Earth. Do you remember that one? It was this massive one.
I don't remember. I don't even know if they gave the name for that, but yeah, it was the one that had all like the biodomes on.
Right.
I can't remember if they even gave a name for that. They might have, but it got nuked pretty quickly.
Yeah, and so they I think his intention was to tell stories on each of these ships and to kind of break things up and make it make it feel like you're kind of jumping around to different areas and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then they got to episode 3, Bastille Day, which was really kind of the first foray into doing this with Richard Hatch as Tom Zarek on the prison ship,
which was named the Astral Queen, which is like the most tragic name you can ever imagine for a prison ship.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Which I'm not saying that myself. Ron Moore himself on the commentary said that.
Yes.
Just to be clear. It was either Ron Moore or his production partner. I can't remember if it was him or not. But anyways, yeah.
But what ended up happening was this type of a show exposed to them the budgetary limits that they were going to run into if they were going to try to do all of these different sets for all these different ships. And so it really when they did that episode, it became very clear that it was going to be prohibitively expensive to take this tack. And so they shifted gears to center it more on the Galactica itself, the Cylon ship, and then just a few other small ones here and there, which is what we saw. So anyways, it was just kind of an interesting little minutia that I came across where the original intent of BSG was and I think it's an interesting concept because it's something that Star Trek hasn't really explored either, which is to kind of tell stories across different ships within a fleet, as a way of kind of binding the narrative together and moving the story along. And it's no different than if you're on a planet and you're in California versus, New Hampshire versus Washington D.C. or something like that. So I thought that was really just kind of an interesting little bit of trivia there. So
yeah, and the thing is, I get. So there's a tension, right? There's a tension between the folks who have like the blue sky. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest idea, and it's a little bit like to drag it back to wrestling, which I mean our fans just love so much, and the reason why my wife doesn't listen to this show because we talk about wrestling. Hi, honey. On the off chance that you are listening, but like when Triple H talked about Bray Wyatt. Like he is so creative and he's out there and he's doing this and then the other, and you have to whittle him down to the ideas. So you have the blue sky thinkers who are like, oh, this would be great, and this and that. Then you have the other people like, hey, guess what? We have this thing called a budget. And the folks who run that are accountants, and they love math.
There's this thing called money.
Yeah, and they don't have the same tolerance for overruns.
Yeah,
and so from a writing perspective, I get it. It's also the reason why when you see a lot of like book adaptations, people are like, oh, it's nothing like the book. Well, yes. because there's budgetary considerations. You can only shoot in so many places, and you have to think about like how can we reuse these sets and this and that and the other. So I get it. And I totally understand the reason why. And it's the reason why Star Trek hasn't done it is a same reason, but it's also a narrative reason. And here I think they actually might have backed into what actually wound up being one of the high points of the show. It was like, well, it's called Battlestar Galactica. It's one of the reasons why this whole idea of like a spin-off doesn't work, because, well, it's called Battlestar Galactica. If we're not dealing with the Galactica, which is a Battlestar, who the frack cares? You know, it's not Battlestar Galactica. The same as Star Trek is almost synonymous now with the Enterprise. Yeah. DS9 and Voyager excluded. But it is exclusively dealing with the crew of one ship, because we want to get to know those characters. And when you're starting to hop around, it becomes much harder to really feel a connection to those characters. And so I think in a way it's a great idea, you know, and as someone who writes and who wants to be like that, oh yeah, let's do this and this, it sounds great. But I'm also so thankful people like who are like, you know, all right, come back to reality. You're a balloon that's floating off into the stratosphere. Allow me to tether you to reality. You can't do that. And I think it worked out, because that also exposed a little bit of the shortcomings of that, because you also realize like, oh, so the sharpshooter that we have is also the ace fighter pilot. You know, and we're still trying to shoehorn these same characters because we've already got a ginormous cast. Yeah. We need to make sure that it's the same characters involved. Like, oh, this is going to be a problem. Yeah. Like, because we're always going to have to involve Starbuck. We're always going to have to involve Apollo. So everything that happens on these other ships is going to have to involve these characters. Yeah. We might as well just focus on Galactica. And then when we go to other ships, all right, then you can plausibly say like, okay, well, then these characters are caught in there. But if it's every single episode that you're going to a different ship and all of a sudden, well, Apollo's there. Well, gee, what a fracking coincidence that is. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I get it. And, you know, good idea, but yeah, probably for the best.
And the Biodome ship was called Cloud9.
Yes.
Cloud9.
Oh my gosh, you're right. They mentioned that.
It was in the article. It's not like it came to me like in some glimmer of great thought. But Colonial One, Cloud9, Battlestar Pegasus were kind of the ones. But you know, they were still able to achieve what they wanted to set out to do, because they just, you know, they use the Galactica in different ways to tell those stories, whether it be about education, whether it be about medicine and what they were struggling with. I think in season 3 or 4 there's an episode called Dogtown, I think, where it's like there's almost like a little village
that was the Woman King.
Oh, the Woman King. Thank you. Yeah. But basically a village kind of got built into one of the, I think it was the old launch bay or something like that. Yeah.
Don't forget Baltar's cult room / love harem. You know, I mean, so they managed to utilize. Yeah, hard times and Baltar's love harem. Yeah, you know, you're living up there. You ain't got no supplies, but you got a guy who's it? He got the charisma. You know, he's got that thing that it drives him. It just drives him all crazy. Getting funky up in here.
Oh my gosh!
Hang on a second. Yeah.
Oh dear.
This is a theme song for Baltar's Love Harem.
We're all dancing in the video here. No one can see us.
It's a problem with people driving by in the street looking in the window of my office. Anyways.
Doing it 10 o'clock at night.
What's going on over there? It's hard times, baby. Hard times.
And I didn't give credit when we started on this one, but ScreenRant.com was the site that gave us this wonderful bit of trivia around USG. Next one we have, and we are wrapping up shortly here, folks, but
no, we're not.
Haley Atwell as Captain Carter. This comes from whoops. This comes from JoeBlow.com. or maybe I should say Jablo.
Well,
Jablo.
Man, there's so many comments I have right now, and I'm exercising so much restraint right now.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Basically, just article is her talking about her time playing Captain Carter and the difference between, you know, what she felt and how she felt doing it as a voice actor voicing Captain Carter in What If versus her role in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where we had Captain Carter as a cameo, but she was, shall we say, cut down in her prime. So,
well, everybody was.
Well, that's true.
Nary one of them made it out of that alive.
Black Bolt wasn't cut down. He just said too much. Blew out the back of his head.
Got like a fart and a wink on screen time. Like, my goodness.
All right.
And who was Black Bolt?
What is his name?
Anson Mount, who is now
Anson, thank you.
Who is Captain Pike from Strange New Worlds.
And I don't have this in the Week in Geek, but I did see an article where he would like to play Black Bolt again in the MCU, but who wouldn't? So, but that was pretty much the extent of it. This article coming out as Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is in theaters. So, she was just kind of talking about how it was a bit frustrating moment for her. She was hoping to do a little bit more with the character, just said she enjoys playing it, and it is, and as fans, it's fun to see kind of a different take on the Captain America, you know, character through the multiverse. Unfortunately, she met her end quickly and swiftly. So thoughts on her thoughts from Jablo.com.
Yeah, I mean, everybody would, you know, love to have more meat on the bone when it comes to a cameo, but that's a cameo. Yeah. And you know, at the very least, like, this is not the main universe Captain Carter that's getting taken out. There's many other Captain Carters. You know, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Moving right along from Marvel into the world of professional wrestling. We have a little bit of an item to discuss over the last 2 weeks, a little bit of heat to use the wrestling terminology. But Kevin Nash on his podcast, Click This, a couple of weeks ago, seeing LA Knight for the first time and commenting on how he seems like he's a ripoff of Stone Cold and The Rock, and that caused a maelstrom of reaction from fans who thought he was overreacting or you know, not understanding the character enough, or not, you know, or not watching enough of the show. At one point, Nash has a follow-up to that. Now, again, these are clips that I'm finding on YouTube of his show. I don't listen to the entire show. But there's a clip a few days later where he talks about watching Raw, and he's like, I didn't see him come out. And someone in the comments wrote something like, Mr. Nash, LA Knight's on SmackDown. You may want to watch that show if you're looking.
What?
So I ask you, sir, and to be fair, to be balanced in this, actually last night, there was another clip from his show where they were talking about him again. Nash has since gone back, watched more of the body of work of the man playing LA Knight, going back to his indies, like indie run, and his time on Impact as Eli Drake, and had very positive things to say about him. So I think what was really unfortunate, and to give context, LA Knight has been in the wrestling business for close to 20 years, spent a lot of time on the independents, had a pretty successful run in TNA Impact as a big player, winning their world championship, and really even then shining big time. And when I saw him, my thoughts were, if this guy gets a WWE, he's going to be huge, because he just there's something, as he calls it, he's got the Kavorka. And so that's right. Let me talk to you. And so I ask you, sir, thoughts on him being a ripoff of Stone Cold and The Rock? Do you see it? Do you see it as an influence? Is it more of a homage, or is this just, you know, he's just got charisma and he's just kind of hitting some notes and it's resonating? Because this guy, as you and I said, but in the pre-show, he is getting pops that we haven't seen since the Attitude Era, and it's pretty interesting.
All right. First of all, I want to do I do a lot of impressions on this show, and probably badly, and I apologize for all of those, and not really. But here's my impression of Kevin Nash.
Oh, good God.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, dude, like, I didn't see a whole lot I'm going to talk about. Shut up, you old bastard. All right.
Dear.
Just my
Uncle
time
Todd
is
going nuclear.
over. I was never that compelling on promos, and never got the pops that this guy got. So just simmer down. Without having, well, I went back and I watched some more and now I've changed my mind. No, you essentially just threw out an opinion and thought it would fly, and you misread the room. Okay, that's what it was. And granted, I mean, Kevin Nash has done more in any industry than I have, but whatever. It still doesn't change the fact that he talked out his ass when it came to this. As far as LA Knight, everything is an homage. Everything is ripped off. There's no, Arthur Conan Doyle said it best when he had Sherlock Holmes say there's nothing new under the sun. It's all been a retread and a redo. I mean, good Lord. Hulk Hogan ripped off from superstar Billy Graham, and, this guy ripped off from this guy, and this guy ripped off from that guy. And, it's just the way it is. The thing that I think that we have to acknowledge here is that how tough it is for a wrestler to get over in this day and age.
Yeah.
Because you have such a mix of smart fans to mark fans. Now, for those folks who don't understand that, a mark is somebody who doesn't really understand the wrestling business. A smart fan is someone who understands all the background machinations and how the business actually works. It's a little bit different now because, kayfabe, which is like pretending that wrestling is real, is not a thing anymore. So the line is blurred, and there's much more of the smart fan sort of thing.
Yeah.
However, it's very difficult for a wrestler to get the kind of response that LA Knight is getting, which is above and beyond what the company is expecting or planning.
Yeah.
I don't think that WWE is. I think they're in a rare position for them, because we don't exactly know what to do now, because this guy is getting way more of a reaction than what we planned for. This is not the dude that we want. The dude is 40 years old, and he is getting these responses that we don't know what to do with this guy, because we hadn't planned on him getting this.
Number 4 on the merchandise mover rankings, apparently. So
jeez,
he is just above the NWO, which apparently is still selling a lot of merchandise. He's just below Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then I forget who 1 and 2 were.
I'm going to guess Reigns.
Sorry, Reigns and Rhodes. Reigns and Rhodes are number 1 and 2. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something to be said for this guy to get over, and he's getting over, I think, in the right ways, because he's a hell of a worker.
Yeah.
He is, and you pointed out yourself, he is the one guy who's managed to engage with Bray Wyatt over the past few years and come out better, as opposed to tanking and needing to recover.
And he lost that match. He was out for a week, came back, and just kept doing his shtick. And and let's be honest, there's a lot of elements of what he was doing now that he did as Eli Drake in TNA Impact. He was doing the Yaz. He worked the whole dummy thing in, which is pretty funny. Calling people dummy and all that sort of thing. But he was doing the let me talk to you. He was doing the yeah. He's been doing that for a really long time. So when I first heard Nash's comments, I'm like, he must not have really seen this guy's body work, because he's been doing this for a really long time.
He just saw the promos. He didn't see the actual in-ring work, which is where this dude actually shines. If you think his promos are good, you think he's good on the mic, he's a hell of a worker. And that's the thing that distinguishes him.
Yeah, and he did when he said he saw the footage of him, he had a lot of very complimentary things to say about he's solid. It looks like a solid hand. He's talking about a couple techniques that he happened to notice as well that, to I think someone who's in the wrestling business shows a sign of craft and skill. And so I think, I think that was his way of acknowledging those things that he sees him as a good worker. I think what's been very interesting is WWE has done zero to push him, and he has organically grown into where he is now on his own. Because
they don't
of his
know
charisma.
what to do with him because and it's a rare thing
because I think they're getting him in line for the U.S. title. I think he's going to make a run at Austin Theory. I think it's a great. First of all, you and I have both said this. That U.S. title is one of the nicest looking belts that they have.
Fracking gorgeous. It's the best. It is the best. Without, in my opinion, it is better than any world title. It is the most beautiful title they have right now.
So put it on him. Yeah. Let him have a run with it up through WrestleMania, maybe, let him be a champion for a period of time. You don't have to define him as a babyface or not. I mean, I think him just staying the course of what he's doing is doing great. Let's not overstate, he's a babyface now or whatever. But give him a belt, let him run for a bit as a champ and see how that goes. And then see if he's someone who, because guess what? We're right around the corner, not right around the corner, but soon we're going to get to WrestleMania next year. And if it goes the way we think it's going to go and Rhodes ends up beating Reigns, now Cody Rhodes needs some heels to go up against. And wouldn't it be, Austin versus The Rock, if we want to go with that comparison, Rhodes versus, Knight or something like that? I could see that being a very compelling matchup between those two guys. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think give him a secondary title, let him run with it, let him build on the momentum, get to WrestleMania, maybe he drops the strap or something, but get him into a couple good angles, good feuds, and then maybe he's a potential challenger for Rhodes to at least give Rhodes a couple of guys to, kind of exercise being a world champion with.
Yeah. No, I agree. And he's, pardon me, the seltzer and the bourbon are not playing well. Sorry. I agree. I think this guy should be given leeway to do whatever. Like this is one of those things where it's almost, to me, it reminds me of like Mankind.
Yeah.
Like Mankind was never, Mick Foley was never looked at as a champion. Mm-hmm. Even I think I would say up until a few weeks before they actually gave him the title, because there was no preparation for him getting the title. And it was almost like damn, the fans are into this guy.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how this goes, that sort of thing. And that's why, to me, he is one of the most interesting characters, and character, I mean like character in terms of on screen, but also as in terms of an individual to come along in a while, because like you said, he's gotten over organically, and they really don't know what the hell to do with him in some ways. And anything to push this guy, I think, in the right direction is a good idea.
Yeah, and one area that I think Nash was wrong in is I think he mistakenly related the as you've heard us do, the thing he does there for Steve Austin's what. Yeah. I don't see those as the same thing at all. I see those as two very different things that he does. Now the crowd is doing it in a similar fashion, but it's almost like it to me it's not the same thing. Like he's using it for a different reason. I think his cadence at times can be somewhat like Rock or like Austin, but again, I think he's just a strong speaker, and I think he really, his promos are extraordinarily strong. He connects with the audience. Yeah, strap a rocket on this guy and let's see where he goes.
The thing is, you could go back to if you really wanted to, like Zapruder, like conspiracy film theory, this thing all the way down, you could go back and you could break down Austin's promos and say, oh, these are his influences, and Rock's promos, and these are his influences, and this is where he ripped off this and this and that and the other. And Mick Foley, certainly, I mean, my God, just go back to frickin' Terry Funk and all of the stuff that he stole from him blatantly and has willingly admitted. Yeah, he's doing some similar stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, hey, Kevin, you know how you used to step over the top rope? That was Andre's thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing that Andre wasn't around, because you know what? Andre whipped Big John Studd's ass for doing that. So good thing Andre wasn't around when you did, because guess what? Andre would have whooped your ass too. Yeah. I don't care how big and bad you thought you were. Andre was bigger and badder, and drunker. But it's one of those things where it's like, yes, of course he's borrowing. Of course there's some similarities. Of course it's the way it works, dude.
Yeah.
It's like saying saying like, oh no, this movie's derivative of this and blah, blah, blah. Or friggin' Michelle Rodriguez saying like, oh, well, all these movies are, sequels. And it's like, dude, you're in the 10th movie about racing cars. Like, you're going to talk about sequels? Really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh my gosh. Like, it's okay. It's the same as going back to cheap thrills. It's okay to have a cheap nostalgic moment. It's okay. Just let it go and enjoy it. And if you don't, shut up and move to the side. Find something else. Go knit, collect stamps.
As Booker T said on his show this week, another YouTube clip I watched, what is old is new again. Put a rocket on this guy's back and let's see where it takes him. So we're all in for LA Night. All right, sir. We're about to wrap up a close to an hour-long Week in Geek segment here. You, sir, have a Sheik tweet of the week from our from friend of the show, the Iron Sheiky.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
That's right.
Make him humble.
So this week's Sheik tweet of the week comes from January 26, 2022, where the Iron Sheik says thusly, in all caps, as was his wont, Wednesday night might be the hardest day to spell, but it is the easiest day to say, go fuck yourself, Hulk Hogan. Ladies and gentlemen,
the man is an artist in terms of how he works in his hatred for Hulk Hogan.
A poet, ladies and gentlemen, of unmatched ability.
On that poignant note, that, my friends, is a close to an hour-long Week in Geek.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
Thank you.
He was a punk.
I just love that one.
He was a punk.
Give me a little Chips outro music. Come on. Oh, there we go. Have a little dance party here, ladies and gentlemen. Uncle Todd now. Chips theme. Here we go.
I popped out a hip. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to tail that off.
Yeah, you got to do the Shawn Michaels grab the back when he was like acting as Hulk Hogan. He was doing all the flexing. And he's like,
yeah. It's not that far from the truth. I found out today that I can bench press 165 pounds once.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I was supposed to do 2 reps. That second one, I also found out that the lower hooks on the bench rack that I was using are a good place to dump that weight when you can't lift it back up to the proper ones.
Jeez, do you have a spotter or no?
No.
Oh, come on, man! You did a 160.
165.
165. Gosh, be careful.
It was a PR. So I got the 1, but I was supposed to get 2, and I did the 1, and I was like, I think I can do it, and I should have listened to myself and been like, no, you can't. But anyways, well, thank you, sir, for that educational Week in Geek, and now we will get on to Bob Iger.
Who would ever thought we'd have an entire show themed around him?
A CEO in 3 parts, a tragedy in 3 acts, as you would say.
There you go.
I'm going to put sure. I'm going to put a link to this.
Jimmy Dice.
So the title of our show here comes from the Mickey Fires Bob Chapek YouTube video, which is well worth your time. The problem is that now we've come to the point where most of this is true of freaking Bob Iger.
Yeah.
So here we are, folks, wandering our way through many different entertainment, notable news, but using Bob Iger as our tour guide into hell, essentially. So the man they call Tim, you want to lead us through this since you are managing to dredge up all of this information?
Yeah, so in subsection 1 that of course, title.
Oh, gosh. Are we getting into contracts?
That's right. Subsection per se, hearsay.
You suspect.
Retainer.
You beat me to it. I had a mouthful of seltzer.
The Wrath of Bob Iger, Part 1. So,
all right. So hang on a second. We got to do this PTI style, which means I got to get my timer going. Hang on a second. All right, we are going now.
Okay, so first article from Variety.com. Bob Iger has his contract extended as Disney CEO through 2026. So not a whole lot of news there other than just the fact that Bobby Boy is going to be around for at least another couple of years.
Did they say what his original contract was when he came back?
Let's see. He came back in November 2022.
Because it was very kind of quick. So I imagine it wasn't a long-term deal. So what? It must have been like 2 years? They gave him another 2?
I would guess. Yeah. So maybe it would have been to 2024 and they extended him out to 2026. Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's reasonable.
Yeah. So that was the first piece of news, and that's important because of what follows after that. So so he's extended through 2026, and then we get the announcement last week from the man, the myth, the legend, Bob Iger, that apparently Disney is going to start ratcheting down the amount of, and this is from InsideTheMagic.net, going to be ratcheting down the amount of Star Wars and Marvel content that is going to be created. So as many may know or maybe not know, apparently we were in a streaming bubble during the pandemic, and that bubble has gone pop. So streaming services are now apparently bleeding money like crazy because we're all going back out into the world and doing things again and not sitting in front of our TV set.
No. Time out on this.
All right. Good.
Streaming companies are getting panicky because no one actually thought of how they're making money off of streaming. And COVID came along, and all of a sudden, they're getting tons of viewers, but they're like, "Oh wait, are we really making the money that we're spending?" There was, I think, everyone jumped into it, and they didn't really look at what the economics and what the wins were. They were just like, "Everyone's doing it, let's do it." I don't think it's necessarily like, "Oh, it's a streaming bubble; it's gone away." Like that's an excuse. You guys just really were just trying to like get in on the streaming orgy that was happening without really thinking it through.
Well, and we'll get into this in the next article that follows, but but Disney Plus has shed a fair number of subscribers. So that's where I think that theory or that perspective is coming from, is that, and not just them, like them, Netflix, a lot of streaming services are losing subscribers because people are getting back to life as it once was. And there is not as much of a, and again, with inflation and with a lot of other economic things going on, dropping the money for these services may not be in everyone's budget. And so,
and also how many people are shuffling around like I do, like where they're like, okay, I'm not watching anything on, Peacock, for instance, like, let me drop that one. And then if something comes along, like, all right, maybe I'll renew for a couple months and then drop it,
But it is going to be curious, though, to see how this impacts Star Wars, because right now we have Ahsoka coming up, which is really the last piece of live action content that we've been, sold on or advertised to on Disney Plus. So are we going to start seeing on the Plus, really no other, kind of limited series like what we've been seeing with Obi-Wan, like we've been seeing with Mandalorian? Are they going to pump the brakes a little bit? How does that play into Filoni's, movie that is supposed to incorporate Mando, which I believe is supposed to be like Heir to the Empire, which is what all of the Ahsoka stuff is building towards. So it's kind of a strange announcement because it's been said, but I don't know how it impacts those things, because they do have, I think a couple episodes back, we walked through, I think, Disney's plan for Marvel and Star Wars, the movies that were going to be coming out. They had a pretty strong lineup. They didn't say in this article, like specifically that certain movies are getting axed. It was just a statement from Iger. So I'm kind of curious, like, how that impacts things, because I think there was going to be the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie that was supposed to come out next year, I believe. And then Heir to the Empire, I think, was supposed to come out, in 2025 or 2026. And so we'll have to kind of see if that now means those movies are just being deferred or delayed, or, I mean, right now nothing's happening because of the writer's strike. So we'll get to that later on. But yeah, it's just, and then same with Marvel, I don't know what that means. Right now, all of this is up in the air because of the writer's strike, but when they do, like, assuming things come to a head and they come back, and get back to work, what does that mean for, phase 5 and that kind of thing? And is Disney really not going to produce these movies, or are they going to stretch them out like longer so they're not having to dump so much money into them? Because it seems like that's the thing he's trying to solve for, is just Disney's just bleeding money right now in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, on one hand, I understand. Like, I get why you want, and the smartest thing that Bob can do right now is to shut his yap about any of this and use the writer and use the strike as an advantage to then be like, okay, just don't say anything. Don't say anything. And then when this whole thing writes itself, then go, okay, well, we have to readjust because of, and then readjust how you want. Mm-hmm. I get it. Like, you're spending a ton of money on these shows and you're doing this and that and the other, and you don't know how it's profitable. Okay, use this time to figure that out. And in some ways there might not be a great idea, because you're doing a really high concept, high budget stuff, and you're hoping it's going to pay off, and it might not in every case. Fine. You're going to readjust. I mean, they've already canceled how many different movies? What's her face? Wonder Woman director, Rogue Squadron. That's gone. Patty Jenkins, thank you. Taika Waititi's movie is not happening. Let's just face facts on that. Like, we hadn't heard squat on that after the announcement. It's supposed to come out next year. It would have to go into post-production now with for those of us who worked in server, they'd have to put that one on the rail to try and make it get out for next week. It ain't next year. It ain't happening. But all this stuff, like, it's going to shift, and I get it. Like, you want to make sure that the stuff that you have has a lot of impact, and there's been a lot of oversaturation and a lot of throwing stuff at the wall and see what's going to stick. Fine. But do it in a somewhat civilized, sensible way. And I get fans are overreacting, but yeah, I mean, the fact is, like, a lot of the stuff is diluted.
Yeah.
Like, there is too much content, and they might have overstepped their limits. Okay, recalibrate. But, one for fans, don't get too cranky, because there's a lot of fans out there who are already like, oh, there's too much stuff. Well, and then they're like, oh, there's not gonna be enough stuff. Like, oh, for God's sake, can you be happy about one way or the other? But just kind of let's see how this whole thing settles. I honestly think that Disney Plus is going to see a lot of return for Ahsoka. I think they're going to get a lot of subscriptions back in August for people who want to see this, because there is a lot of buzz about it. I mean, there's a lot of, it's been a little while since you've had Star Wars content. So yeah, oh my gosh, we lost subscribers. Yeah, because Mando's done.
Yeah.
And there's been no new content. And if you're just a Disney Plus subscriber for Star Wars content, well, I've probably already watched it all. Let me take a couple months off and save, some $9.99 or whatever the crap it is now, per month fees. And then I'll come back when Ahsoka's streaming, I don't know. I mean, I get it and I don't get it. I overall, I think that we're better off with Iger than Chapek in this stance. Yeah.
Maybe that's what we should have done for the show. Battle of the Bobs. Would you have taken Chapek or Iger?
I mean, it's all Iger. Chapek was such a.
I know. Let's not get you on that soapbox.
But I think that if they just stick with what they're doing, I think it's okay. Yeah. I think it will be okay. But I think trying to blame it on, like, oh, well, costs or this and that, like, no, you guys as a business did not figure this thing out. You were just jumped in because it was like, oh, this is the next big thing. Right. And we have to be part of it. And you didn't really think about, and then you're like, oh, well, it's this guy's fault and this guy's fault. No, you're the one at the top.
Yeah.
You jumped in on all this. Own it.
Just real quick on the Marvel front, that article, talks about, Marvel's run, which we all know Phase 4 has been a little uneven. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness had some hype, started had some inroads into the multiverse. Thor Love and Thunder, that was kind of a meh, outing there. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was really well done, but to varied reception. Ant-Man and the Wasp is universally believed to, and I would agree, just very bad reviews and has the worst box office of the MCU.
Valid.
along with the fact that their star is in some legal trouble. So when it comes to the shows that were coming up, so here's what was supposed to be coming out in season 2. What if season 2, not season 2, sorry, was supposed to come out in 2023. What if season 2, Ironheart, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, Echo, and Loki. Now, none of these have been canceled, but only Loki is coming out in October and Echo in November. All of those other series have been pushed out. So they haven't been canceled, but they're not airing this year. And the question is, will they ever air because of the fact that they've been pushed out?
If I had to guess, I would say What If is going to, because animated series require so much production time.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet that's like 85% done.
Yeah.
And there's and what's the write-off there? Like Coven of Chaos. I don't know about that one because they just announced Aubrey Plaza as part of that.
Okay.
And I mean, good God, you get Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn in that. You get a little Parks and Rec reunion there.
Yep.
Oh, I can't even imagine how good that's going to be.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of this is just like stretching this stuff out a little bit more.
Could be.
And maybe just trying to like, okay, let's space this out. And it's sort of like when Marvel was doing, at one point they had like 4 movies in a year.
Yeah.
And then they realized like, oh, maybe not a good idea. Maybe 2 movies per year is the way to go.
Right. Well, and okay, and that segues nicely into a comment Iger made, which I think I agree with. He admitted that Marvel's lack of television footprint meant that the Disney Plus show execution diluted the saga and split the fan base, meaning, and I do understand where he's coming from. Marvel Studios injected so much into the streaming shows that the casual moviegoer then needed to have a subscription and watch multiple seasons and multiple episodes to be in the know about certain events. So I get that. You know, I think that is the struggle when you try to go multi-channel the way that they did, rather than leave it to the movies to be the key anchor points for the fan base to see the story progress. I think these series were fun, but again, if you're a casual fan who just happened to like the movies, doesn't and you know, I'm kind of starting to fall into this a little bit with some of what they're putting out there. Like I still haven't seen Miss Marvel, still haven't watched She-Hulk. I want to, but again, you know, in the prioritization of what I want to see, that's kind of low on the totem pole right now. So
yeah.
And again, not that it's ruined my viewing of any of the movies that we've seen recently, but there's things like when Captain Marvel 2 comes out, I'm missing some context because I haven't seen Miss Marvel yet. So
yeah,
I do get his point, and I do think that is somewhat of a challenge that maybe they didn't anticipate how that would impact their fan base. Having said that, when they started this run, it was during the pandemic when we were all home anyways. So, you know, again, I think events played out initially okay because everyone was just kind of home and they could get that was the content they could see. And so maybe the fan base wasn't as split, but I think now that things have opened back up and we're back to kind of normal operation, now it's exposing kind of a flaw in this whole thing. So
you're wrong.
What?
So I will disagree on this point.
You're wrong.
All right.
This goes way before COVID, and it goes to the beginning of the idea of a MCU, and the idea of interweaving stories and then coming together in an Avengers movie, and then because think of it, you start out with a couple of characters, different movies, and then you bring them all together. And you put them in an Avengers movie. Then everything after that is an Avengers sequel, whether it's so you kind of bring them all together, then you separate them, but they're still kind of sequels to Avengers because they're still playing off each other. Then you bring them together again.
But Infinity Saga was single channel. It was movies only. Like you had to.
True.
The only way you saw the story progress was in the movie theater. You had no choice on television.
But that was still at least.
That's the difference. I mean, they've almost multiversed themselves in a way, right? They have the movies, but they also have the shows, which some of them you need to watch to understand some of the things that are going on in the movies. And now you've kind of diluted that a little bit. So,
but it's the next logical step, and that's why I say it goes back to this whole idea because it's something that no one has ever done. And if anyone has ever done anything close to this, they didn't do it very well because we can't remember it. Nobody talks about it. So this is really the first time you've taken like different movies and brought them together and the characters into a sequence of movies that build to one thing and then separate them, build to another thing, build to another thing. No one's ever done that. And so then the next logical step is, well, you're going to grow out here and here and here. And the thing is, I can't fault them that much because they're doing the thing that in some ways is the opposite of what people criticize Hollywood for, which is, oh, they're only thinking, all right, there's our alarm, but you know what? We're going to go into OT on this one. They talk about, like, they're always thinking about the sequel.
Boundaries? What boundaries?
They're thinking about the sequel. They want to just do the sequel and this and that. And the other. They're building that. Here you have this thing where they're like, all right, we're going to do this thing and we're not going to bother thinking about like what happens after Infinity Saga is over. We're just going to make these really good. And then we're going to kind of just go from there and try things. And in a way, I applaud that. And that's why I'm okay with some of the fumbling and some of the missteps and this and that, because at the very least, it's trying these new things. So like trying to branch out and saying like, yeah, if you want to see the Marvels, you kind of have to watch Miss Marvel because you have to watch the genesis of that character. Okay. And maybe it doesn't work. All right, well, fine. Then you adjust and you go forward. But I applaud the fact that they're at least trying this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is tough because the other part of this is that you're building off of, you're trying to do like, oh, well, it's like the comics. Well, yeah, but it's a lot harder to keep it, separated in movies and TV when you're still trying to connect them all, directly as it is when you're doing, comics where it's like they don't all directly connect. Like there's very few like Secret Wars moments and things like that. Like the Avengers was another comic. It wasn't this special thing that came along. Like it was just another book that you bought, and so it's just a different mechanics. So I give them credit for doing it. And yeah, there's stuff that doesn't work. But at the same time, it's still kind of fun to keep up with.
Agreed.
Yes.
So saith the Undertaker. There we go. All right. So we have now completed subsection paragraph 3, subsection B. The Wrath of Bob Iger, part 1. Heretofore, we move on to the Wrath of Bob Iger, part 2.
Which means this is the Wrath of God. I spit it.
There we go. All right. So this is from Walt Disney World News Today.
Damn!
Thank you, Ron. Title is CEO Bob Iger considering selling streaming services and other assets, may even try to sell entire Disney company.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
It's from a couple days ago. Basically, Iger's comments, that Disney, okay, here's the numbers I was talking about. Disney streaming services have been losing money in subscribers. Disney Plus, the Plus lost 4 million subscribers last quarter. Streaming is expected to hit a total loss of 800 million in the third quarter. So that is quite a bit of moolah that they are burning right there. And according to Bloomberg, Iger wants to completely sell or restructure Disney's TV and streaming businesses in India. This is where Disney Plus has had the biggest losses.
So wait, just in India?
Well, it goes on. Iger plans to hold onto Hulu, and Disney will launch a combined app for Hulu and Disney Plus later this year. The streaming services still have their separate apps, at least for now. What else? Iger wants to hang on to ESPN, but is looking for a partner for the sports network. Potential partners include sports companies and Apple. And that's where the rumors of, selling the company would basically go to Apple, is what it sounds like. So if he sells all of Disney, he would sell it to Apple. But the sale, so it's nothing more than speculation right now, but the sale seems to be a possibility according to this article. So
wait, is he looking just to sell like the Disney Plus rights for India, or is he looking like the whole kit and caboodle?
This is where it's a little bit of a overstatement in the title. So when they talk about streaming services, it sounds like they want to sell the services from India. Disney Plus Hotstar, the region's version of Disney Plus, lost streaming rights to Indian Premier League cricket matches, leading to the service losing 3.8 million subscribers in quarter 1 and 4.6 million in quarter 2. So I think this is really just about selling streaming services within India. I don't think they're doing anything with the Plus overall.
Okay, so hang on. Just so how many lost subscriptions
in India?
Yes.
Quarter one, 3.8 million and 4.6 million in quarter two.
Okay, big numbers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you attach 1 million to something, it's a big number.
It is.
I've never seen 1 million of anything unless you're talking of grains of sand on the beach.
And then in general, Disney Plus has lost 4 million subscribers in quarter two.
Okay, so hang on a second here. Let me just see if I can find out what that is.
All right, folks. Uncle Todd's doing the maths. Hang on.
I can't find a number for that. But anyways, so if they lost, what was the number for India again? They lost in the quarter. Was it 3.8, something like that?
Yeah, I can do the addition for you if you need me to.
Well, no, because so India has had 302.4 million households in 2021. So they lost however many million of that. They didn't lose 100.
About 8.4.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. But when you're talking about India and that many households, like, it's not like like nobody in India is watching Disney Plus.
No, but I think the larger point is they lost the rights to Indian Premier League cricket matches, which I think I think the intention in the article was to say that these losses are just going to continue because that was a source of subscribers coming to the channel.
Yeah, totally. I mean, cricket is huge in India, so yeah, that would totally make sense. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it to me, it's like, yeah, well, they're looking to sell, but yeah, they're looking to sell in an area where it's like, yeah, and as soon as we lose the cricket matches, then we're done.
Okay.
That'd be like all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, and Disney on Disney Plus, you're no longer going to be able to watch Marvel or Star Wars. You would see a huge drop off.
Right. The part I skipped over is I think he wants to sell some of the Disney TV channels like Freeform, the Disney Channel, all that stuff. It says here, Wells Fargo analyst says selling the TV networks could get them about $8 billion, which would help offset the cost of that last third. And it does sound like if they want to do the Hulu Disney Plus combination, Disney will more than likely have to buy Comcast 33% stake in Hulu in 2024. So I think this is all kind of maneuvers. If they want, like, it sounds like Iger wants to hold on to Hulu, obviously isn't going to get rid of Disney Plus, but I think he wants to wipe the slate clean with the television channels because of, the lack of whatever, that it seems like it'll generate a lot of revenue for them that they can then parlay into, basically getting Hulu in-house. So,
well, yeah, and it in some ways it eliminates some overhead for them while they're, I'm assuming whoever buys those channels is still going to want Disney content, which they're going to have to license in some way, shape, or form, even if it's at a discount. And then it's like,
that's the point, right? He turns it from them owning the channel to, fine, you can own the channel, but now you need to license the content from us.
Yeah, and even if you do it at like a
making model, so
yeah, even if it's a 50% discount, well, you still don't have the headaches of all that production and overhead and all that. Yeah, it's this thing that these companies ran into when they all wanted to start their own streaming service, realizing like, oh, you mean we got to build the thing from scratch?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gee, that's a lot of money. Speaking to the person who is much more tech savvy than I am, like, who knows very well, like, hey, how much does it cost to build an app? Far more than you think it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. So kind of interesting happenings with Disney, in terms of Iger making some chess moves here in order to shore up some of the streaming and content situation that they have. So
and so far right now we're in the territory of like, okay, Bob, maybe not the most popular decisions, maybe not the most popular ways of expressing those opinions, but still understandable in all this. And in this next segment is where we go into, okay, F this guy in particular.
Yes.
So please, sir.
There we go. All right. And now we are not calling this one the Wrath of Bob Iger Part 3, but rather we're going to call this the WGA-SAG strike and Bob Iger. So basically, do you want to take this a little bit? Because I know this is near and dear to your heart, the writer's strike, or do you want me to lead off with what he said? Maybe I can do that, and then we can get
Well,
into
I mean, we know now that the Writers Guild of America has been striking. They want better residual payments. They want better protections. They want assurances that AI is not going to be used to essentially go back and because you can find a ton of screenplays online for those uninitiated, and for those companies that are accepting screenplays and have them on file, they could go through and say, hey, give me a screenplay in the style of, and here, let me feed all of, the 20 screenplays of this person that we have into an AI bot and essentially get something. I mean, who knows how good it'll be? It'll probably be extremely derivative and meh, but let's, since when has that stopped Hollywood?
Of course.
And so they're looking for some assurances, and they've got the Screen Actors Guild on their side because, well, wanting to pay people to like scan them and then use their likeness into perpetuity don't go over too well for folks. So yeah, it's a bit of a battle right now. It's the first time since I believe the 1960s since both of the guilds have been on strike together.
Yes,
and right now it is essentially ground Hollywood to a bit of a halt, which won't show up for a little while because of the lag in the amount of production time and stuff. But in a couple of years, we're going to have some lean times for entertainment.
More importantly, the pipeline of show ideas and content for free range idiocy is in danger. I think the stock market is tumbling because of this. But we will persevere. We will find a way. There is much for us to talk about.
There's always wrestling and the drama therein.
Absolutely. So would you like me to read Mr. Iger's comments?
Oh, please, because this is
speaking
rich.
To CNBC's David Faber from the Sun Valley Conference in Idaho. Iger commented on the ongoing Writers Guild of America strike and imminent decision for the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA to join them. It's very disturbing to me. This is Mr. Iger. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing, the recovery from COVID, which is ongoing. It's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add that disruption, Iger said. I understand the labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members to get the most compensation and be compensated fairly based on the value that they deliver. We managed as an industry to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflects the value that the directors contribute to this great business. We wanted to do the same with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they're adding to the set of the challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive. End quote. This is from a Variety.com article from a couple days ago. So, Mr. Iger, has he squarely inserted foot into mouth on this one?
Patrick.
Oh, good God.
You remember how I had you Google Bob Iger's office earlier?
You gonna join Ron Perlman?
Mail the bag of dog poo. F this guy in particular.
No, what you need to say to Patrick is order 66.
Yes, essentially. Order 67. The thing is, here's the thing. Like, Bob Iger in 2021 earned $45.9 million. Okay. And then his base salary was $3 million. He earned a cash bonus of $22.9 million in 2020. So, I mean, and essentially with his new contract, apparently he's taken a pay cut, which won't end up being a pay cut. I guarantee it. So,
my portfolio.
Even if it does, I wish I could have the money from his pay cut as my salary. The thing is, when he talks about this is the worst time for this disruption, that's how strikes and demonstrations and things work. They're supposed to be inconvenient. They're going to take advantage of those times. It doesn't change the fact that these people have been screwed over. The people who have been screwed over most, aside from honestly female actors in the history of Hollywood, have probably been writers. Because their work gets taken and very little input unless you have a huge amount of clout And you can be essentially, your script can be taken and then rewritten, and then as long as it adheres to a certain amount, you lose a certain amount of credit on that. And that happens with directors too. It's the same reason why we have Richard Donner not being on Superman 2, because the guy that they brought in shot more than 51, was brought in and told to shoot 51% of the footage so that he would get credit, and Dick Donner would be taken off of the credits. And then after that, the next hope that I have is that the VFX houses get a union, because right now they don't have a union, so they can't even strike, because those are the people who are really getting a prison pounding in terms of like how things work, because it's just the work is divvied up, and like the reason why you see at the end of a Marvel movie like the credits take 20 minutes is because there's like 15, 20 VFX houses that deal with this stuff, because they just split up the work, and it's like, oh, you don't want it, screw you, we'll take it to this guy and this guy, and Warren Armed Monkey studios or whatever is going to do it. The fact is, like, the idea of what's reasonable to somebody who is at the head of a studio, and what is reasonable to the person who is in the creation end, or who is in the process of possibly giving up the rights to their physical likeness in perpetuity, because you started out as a background actor, and then 10 years later, hey, you make it. Well, too bad. Paramount owns your ass, and they can just scan you into whatever they want to down the road. Oh, well, that wouldn't happen. Really? It kind of already has. There's been some examples, and there's been some people who have come out and said, hey, I've had this happen, I've had that happen. Like, you know what? Screw these guys. I and if it means going without content for this podcast, so be it. We'll start freaking interviewing background actors and writers for this thing. I don't care. If it means going without movies, all right, fine. I'm good with that. Residuals for these actors and these writers are so low right now, it's ridiculous. And the idea that you can sit there and bitch and moan that, like, oh, well, we're still recovering and blah, blah. Yeah, you still, whatever. Yeah. This comes off as bad as Chapek getting into a pissing match with ScarJo. Like, this is a bad idea, and you got ahead of yourself, and you lost track of exactly where you're at and how connected you are to the actual people. And you know what? Shame on you and all the studio execs who are like, oh, well, this is terrible. And you're giving these people less than like 1% to 2% of the pie. Shut up. Yeah. With your freaking bonuses and everything else. Like, oh, well, so-and-so, George Clooney made 20 million or so-and-so made 20 million. Yeah, those aren't the people who are this is all about. This is about the people who are making scale, or who are making less than nothing, and who are trying to. You know what? According to Glassdoor, a writer in Hollywood makes between $45,000 and $79,000 a year.
And they're supposed to live in California on that.
Not even in California. You're supposed to live in Hollywood, like a major metropolitan. You can't live in any major metropolitan area for $45,000 to $79,000 a year. Come on. Yeah. And yet Bob, making $49 million a year. Well, this is very, we made. Sorry, no, doesn't fly. Nope, sorry. As Teddy KGB said, pay them their money. Yep, pay them their money.
Give them their $350,
and then some. Give them $350 times 2. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it seems there's a bit of tone deafness going on here, and
totally,
quite honestly, and I wish I'd listened to the podcast, I listened to the podcast sooner to when we did this show, because I was listening to Lewis Black, and he did a great job on his rant.
I don't even know what this is about, but please, dear sweet Lord, put that link on the outline so that I can link that to other people, and so I can listen to it. Pretty please.
No, his rant cast. I will forewarn you that there is a bit of in podcast advertisement. It took me a little bit to figure out that there's a pattern to his show, and he has a little bit of like advertisement going on inside, but no, but he had a show that was just completely about what was going on with the writers, and laid out here's back in the television days, here's how, residuals were paid out. Here's how we made our money, and how that has changed so much due to streaming and what that's doing to them now. Because now, he like one distinction I remember is he talked about how, with a television show, it airs in America, and then when it goes and airs in another country, there are still residual, monies that come back to the people involved based on, where it gets distributed and so on and so forth. That doesn't happen with streaming. So once it airs, they get no other money if it's streaming in India, if it's streaming in England, if it's streaming in Spain or something like that,
which is one of the reasons why these companies were so anxious to get on and streaming, because they're like, ooh, we can make all the money and it's not part of this and that. Ooh, they got all tingly,
Right. So it does, there are some things that need to be adjusted based on how the paradigm for the entertainment industry has shifted. Iger, of course, being a CEO, is going to want to maximize profits as much as possible. I don't know that he's, really speaking to, or I'm sure he understands it's a money thing, more than anything else. And, just the comments, to put it on the writers and actors as, they're being disruptive when they shouldn't be. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Like, they're not being paid a fair wage. They're not being compensated fairly for when their art gets continually redistributed or replayed. So, Disney makes the money, the other studios make the money, but it's just not filtering down to the people who actually made it happen. And so, very, very tone deaf on his part, and just, just an unfortunate set of events that where he needed to, or had felt the need to say something that clearly just doesn't seem to really, understand, or seem like he understands the situation. But then again, how do you expect someone with all the money like he has to really, grasp what the creative types who are struggling to make a buck doing their art, are able to do? So
I know.
I hear you.
For nearly, that amount, that many millions of dollars, you better damn well figure it out.
Yep.
You're being paid well.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we've seen, and I get, like, there are CEOs who do a lot of work, and but I've heard of so many people who are like CEOs of 5 companies. It can't be that difficult of a job if some mofo is CEO of this many companies. All right. And yet you're going to tell me that it's worth more than, like, Johnny Programmer, who is like working overtime, or, Betty, who's working in IT, like holding the whole thing together with, like, chicken wire, string, and bubble gum. And or some dude who's, like, working in a factory, or who's fixing your car or anything like this. You try to tell me that person's that much more important, or that much more smart, or if they are, that they can't figure this out. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways.
Right. Exactly. 100% agree.
There we go.
3 strikes and you're out, Bob.
Oh, why'd you have to bleep with a magic, Bob?
I thought you were doing Paul Bear for a minute, and then I honed in on the Mickey. Gee, Mickey and Paul Bear sound a lot alike.
They kind of do, which is eerie, really.
Well, Bob, as Uncle Todd, well, I'll let Uncle Todd restate the title of this show, but we have to wonder, Bob,
why'd you have to fuck with the magic, Bob?
Amen.
And another thing.
All right, what have you got for and another thing this episode, sir?
Mine's a little more on the simpler side. Over the last week or two, have been on Spotify.
It's shiny and happy, as a matter of fact.
Indeed, listening to the band REM, who was quite big during our high school days and college days, and started even earlier than that. I mean, they were kind of making their bones throughout the 80s, and becoming a global phenomenon, when we got into the 90s. And so, just been listening to, I mean, no album in particular, possibly, seems like we could do an album one-on-one here soon. Be interesting to find REM against, an album of some kind, that, or a band of some kind of their ilk that we could put them head to head with. But yeah, do check them out. Just love the artistry of the music. Have always loved their unique sound. Michael Stipe's one of the unsung, I don't want to say unsung, but just as vocalists go, I know he's recognized as being a strong vocalist in certain circles, but has kind of fallen off the radar a little bit, and I think some of his art has been forgotten, but just a phenomenal singer with a great band, and really enjoy their music, not just the poppy stuff that we're all familiar with. Uncle Todd referenced Shiny Happy People, and there's a few others that made big time radio, but also more of the hidden gems that came from their early days as well. A lot of good creativity there, and just different. It's not. I'm more of a hard rock, more classic rock kind of guy, but this was a nice kind of respite from that. So if you are looking for something to try, do look up the REM mix on Spotify, and check that out. Put it on random and just let it fly, and you will not be disappointed.
Excellent
What about
choice,
you, sir? What is your and another thing? Apparently, I wrote a book.
Yeah, no, Timothy Chabon, not Chabot.
Okay, thank you.
So this my and another thing is The Yiddish Policeman's Union by Timothy Chabon, who is also one of the producers and writers on Picard season 1.
Really,
one of the
Very
kind
cool.
of architects of that, and he's oh my gosh, he's written so many. Actually, I think he actually started out as the showrunner for Picard, and then he left to then whoever took over for season 2 and 3, because Chabon was going to take over production on a series based on one of his books, was The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which is and he's one of these guys who he's written these books, and they're kind of just all over the place, but he writes such interesting characters. And The Yiddish Policeman's Union is a rather interesting book because it's an alternate history novel. So in his timeline, essentially, if I have this right, many of the Jewish people from Europe migrated to the city of Sitka, Alaska. And in this timeline as well, after World War II, there is no state of Israel. So all of the Jewish people in and around Palestine also migrated to Sitka, Alaska. And so there is this large city state that is not technically, it's part of the United States, but it's technically governed by itself. So it's this kind of weird city state, almost like a Hong Kong situation. And in this book, the time it takes place, it's going to then revert back to being under control of the United States. So there's this thing called reversion that's going to happen. And throughout all of this, there is a policeman, Meyer Landsman, who is unfurling these this sort of mystery throughout all of this, and it's kind of tying into all of these different topics and themes and the different the different groups within the Jewish community and all of this. And it's amazing because there's so many Yiddish words that I've had to have my phone right next to me to be like, okay, what does this mean?
Yeah
Interesting. Because and some of it you can I kind of get, because I'm like, oh well, that must mean cigarette, or something. But it's great, and Chabon does such a great job of writing these characters that you just dig into, and some of the stuff that he's so good as a writer that some of the stuff that you might read from another author and go, ugh, that's so lame, works for him. Like he's one of those guys, almost like a wrestler who does something that is so over the top and cheesy, but yet it like Austin with a what sort of thing, just makes it work. Even though it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, that's cheesy. But he makes some of those things work because the rest of it is so good. And the way he just unfurls a yarn is just a thing of beauty. He is, for my money, one of the great novelists of our time. And that goes for, Cavalier and Clay. He did a kid's book called Summerland. not really kids, more young adults. Gentlemen of the Road, just a bunch of books, and they're all really interesting, and they're just not the same. Like they're all very different. Where I'm like, how did all of this come from one person? You know?
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't seem like it ought to work, but it does. Just a great writer. So if you have a chance, I'm actually not all the way through the book. I am 2/3 of the way through, but it is still, unless something really bad happens, and going on my previous experience with his writing, I don't think it's going to happen. This is a great book, and it's a lot of fun to read, and it's just a really solid read. So yeah, The Yiddish Policeman's Union.
You sure they're not going to introduce a character called Luke?
I'm almost positive of it.
All right, just
almost positive.
Maybe
well, ladies and gentlemen, oh my gosh, freaking hot chocolate. There is a lot of discussion about pie, which you'll have to read the novel to understand where that all fits in.
There you go.
And not the kind of pie that The Rock talks about. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for bearing with us through this episode. Not so much bearing with, because we've actually managed to keep this one kind of cozy and tight. But thank you to all the members of the Free Range Idiocy congregation who have tuned in and listened and subscribed. If you have not yet joined the Free Range Idiocy congregation, come on in. Everyone is welcome here in the congregation. There's no hard times. There is hard times because you got to listen, but it ain't no hard times. It's all good here in the hood. And if you're wondering, we kind of consider ourselves, we're the nice cult. And to join, all you have to do is subscribe. So it's a really low bar for entry. So you go to freerangeidiocy.com. You can find all of our episodes there. You can download them individually, wholesale, all of them. If you want to subscribe through the Podbean app, you can do that there as well. If you say to yourself, I've got enough I've got enough apps in my life, I don't need another one. Well, I'm sure you've got an app that we are on. So we are on Apple Podcasts. We are also on Google Podcasts. We are on whatever the hell the Amazon Alexa thing is. They've done such a piss poor job. I don't know what it's called. It's whatever that is. We're there too. We're on Pandora. We're on Spotify. Any podcast provider you can think of, we're probably on there. Go ahead and search and you'll find us. We are also on the social medias. You can find us on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. All of those are at Free Range Idiocy. If you have a question, thought, concern, or if you actually have an idea for a show, because quite honestly, we're going to run out eventually, send those to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com and he will get back to you PDQ forthwith ASAP. And now I'm out of breath, and I had this little globule of spit at the back of my throat that I thought for sure was going to choke me.
Good God.
But I made it. Of course, mentioning it just kind of takes away the fact that I made it. But anyways, I'm going to hand this over to the less idiotic of the two idiots who run this show. And not before I ask the second most important question of all time. The first, of course, being what is hip. The second being, the hell did we learn this episode, sir?
We have learned the following.
Excellent.
We have learned that LA Knight is the real deal, and Kevin Nash needs to watch a little more professional wrestling before making comments.
Yeah. Dummy.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, that was an appropriate drop right there. Well done, sir. We have also learned that there is much wisdom that Sheiky has left behind us. That being one, the other being his tweet of the week. So do go back and check those out because he is funny if nothing else.
Make him humble.
We've also learned a little trivia, a little bit new shit about BSG, having to watch the budgets and not do this sort of crazy storytelling across the entirety of the Galactic Fleet. But I think it's safe to say, Uncle Todd and I feel what was done was well done, and the way it was done. So,
just up, that's it.
There it is. Thank you. And then finally, this wasn't really a court of any sort, but we going through Bob Iger and his plans, his quotes, his thoughts. Or just have to say, good. Yeah, basically. Thanks, Sheiky. My goodness, the timing of this is just beautiful.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
Hopefully we don't see Star Wars and Marvel content completely go away. Don't think we will.
No, God, please, no.
Thank you.
No.
But for goodness sakes, Bob, just do right by these writers and these and the actors, mostly the writers and the crew. Really, kind of think of the little people and give them a little something, please.
Yes, sir. That's it.
There it is. So as we like to close things out, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. And the range is closing for the night, so as we're ought to do and ought to say, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I got it again. So we thank you again. Thank you for the listenership, and consider the ranch closed for the evening.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
Well, I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry.
Damn!
Why, Johnny Ringo. You look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Fight's not with you, Holiday.
I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember?
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you.
I was just fooling about.
I wasn't.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
So say we all.
I'm afraid the strain was more than he could bear.
Patrick, all the dog poo in the box, all of it. I want you to send all that to Iger. No, I don't want you to save any. What are you going to save it? What are you saving the dog poo for? You put it in the fridge? I put my lunch in the fridge.
Oh, dear. That's not very sanitary.
Did you at least, bleach it afterwards? Did you put it in a container? What the hell, dude? I put an apple on that shelf. And I ate it today.
Oh, we got a little special something there.
All right, well, I need to go get a stomach pump.
Okay, well, have fun with that.
Now get the hell out of here!